May I come in?
Yes, please do. Please sit down.
Thank you.
You're Gitanjali Sharma.
Yes.
Gitanjali, I want you to introduce yourself to the board members.
So my name is Gitanjali Sharma and I am from Delhi. I was born in Kerala. I have done most of my schooling from Delhi, 2 years in Jaipur. Thereafter, I have done my BSc in Zoology Honours from Hindu College in Delhi University. And since then, I've been preparing for civil services. My family consists of my father, who has retired from the Navy. My mother, she has retired from the DRDO, and my brother is currently serving in the Navy. And with regard to a few hobbies, I take interest in Kathak, in sport climbing, and I read books on human evolution.
Okay. So Gitanjali, you are from Delhi, you studied zoology, currently your optional is anthropology. So can you tell me, if we look at the fauna of Delhi, Delhi being a deciduous forest, what are the prominent species, fauna species that were traditionally found in Delhi? And nowadays we primarily see macaws, and I'm told that they are not native to Delhi.
So with regard to the megafauna, the Delhi state animal is the nilgai, and therefore nilgais are still found. They are traditionally from Delhi. So with regard to the birds, we see a lot of migratory birds in Delhi because Yamuna Biodiversity Park and Okhla Bird Sanctuary are hotspots for such migratory birds. However, sir, I will admit, sir, I'm not very well versed with the fauna in Delhi.
Okay, Gitanjali, you mentioned that you like studying human evolution. That's been your area of interest. Evolution suggests that every change or every adaptation that occurs in the course of evolution changes species. And human evolution suggests that these changes have made human more adapted. What are the possibility of the coronavirus impacting human civilization, making changes, beneficial changes to human species?
Yes, sir. So one of the phenomena during evolution is that sometimes when species are infected by viruses, a part of the viral RNA or DNA is inserted into the host species, and that has been a factor of evolution, and it could be in this certain case also, and that would be the mechanism. With regard to what benefits, I can only speculate that one of the major benefits would be in terms of resistance to the virus itself.
If we look at the history of diseases, we realize that almost all diseases ultimately contributed to change in the human species. Which disease, if we look at the all spectrum, you believe getting infected with that disease was the beneficial thing that has happened to human species?
So I believe, in my opinion, that species would be smallpox, because that had led to the development of vaccines, and therefore not in an evolutionary perspective, but in a cultural perspective, it has helped us to fight a lot of other diseases as well.
Right. So,
Gitanjali, while studying about evolution, I think you come across biochemical theory of evolution.
Yes, sir. So I have only read popular books on human evolution, so the biochemical theory has not been dealt with. I have not read academic books on evolution.
Okay. Still, if you have to make a less intelligent guess, what could be biochemical theory?
So from what I've read in school, the biochemical theory states that life has evolved from certain molecules, and these were first formed in the oceans. They were hot places where we had a number of say proteins or amino acids which came together they coalesced together to form a particle or a molecule, which later on further evolved to form the first cell and then multicellular organisms, and that's where evolution starts from, sir.
Okay. There is another finding that the largest number of Nobel Prize winners in science are incidentally Jews. Is there any relationship with their religious belief or some racial character or what? How do you explain it?
So, Yuval Noah Harari has written a book in which he has talked about this aspect that Jews have been the largest recipients. However, according to him, and I concur, it is not the religion itself. It is not as though Orthodox Jews are the ones who have won the Nobels, but he does point out that their emphasis on education is what might be one of the reasons why they have been the largest recipients.
And incidentally, the Christians are second largest number of recipients of Nobel Prize.
Okay.
So again, the same theory that they emphasize on education, so they
So
invent.
I'm not sure, sir. I haven't thought about it as of now.
Okay, and Muslims are the least. That means they ignore education.
So I don't think it works the other way around, that if someone hasn't won a Nobel Prize, that means their religion is, I mean, it's just a speculation also.
Okay, that means entirely you can explain through education that incidentally Jews play most important in education, so they have incidentally got most Nobel Prizes.
So that is Yuval Noah Harari's speculation, and it is just a hypothesis. So I believe further research must be needed to say clearly that this is what it is.
Okay, so why in India, after 70 years of independence, we have not a full-fledged citizen who has received a Nobel Prize in Science? Full-fledged means a citizen as well as resident of India.
Yes, sir. So I believe there are a few reasons regarding to this, and one of the primary causes, in my opinion, would be that there is a lack of emphasis on research, scientific research in India, and this is seen with the budgetary allocations. It is only 0.6 to 0.8% of the GDP. Even the economic survey past 2 years has pointed out that this is one of the reasons. Also, sir, the school education in our country, from anecdotal evidence also, it is seen that it promotes more of rote learning as compared to innovation and creativity.
DRDO has been allocated funds very liberally and generously.
Yes, sir.
Why still we are importing so much defense goods from foreign countries, and ultimately we have to bring in FDI to promote defense industry in India? What are the constraints that DRDO is facing in its R&D?
Yes, sir. So, I've spoken to my mother about this, and according to her, although funds are very liberal, the human resource is lacking in its intent of conducting research. It is not, although they hire individuals from the top technological colleges in the country, but there is no motivation to conduct research and to update oneself and to go beyond what is required of them, sir.
That means they are well educated, well lubricated with fun, still they are lacking some spirit.
Yes, sir.
Is it something to do with the culture of India?
So I wouldn't, I wouldn't say blanket, because there is also ISRO, which is an Indian organization which is able to do well. And in another sector, there is DMRC. So it wouldn't be that the culture itself is the problem, but I feel that the leadership would be lacking somewhere in motivating such individuals, so maybe.
So we have having lack of leadership in our society.
So at least for the DRDO, I would say that might be the case.
So that means the entire appointment process of the officials in the DRDO is problematic, highly bureaucratized, not given autonomy.
So it's a lot of it is seniority based, and merit is not given due emphasis in promotions as well. So that could be one of the reasons as well.
Time-bound promotion is problematic, perhaps.
Maybe so.
Okay, thank you.
So Gitanjali, 3 districts or area are playing very important role in your life. One is Udupi, second is Jaipur, and third is Delhi. What are the dominant racial composition of all 3? One by one, would tell me. Dominant race in Delhi, dominant race in Udupi, and dominant race of Jaipur.
So it would be very hard to say what is the dominant
Start
race.
with what Udupi. List controversial.
Yes, sir. So since Udupi is in South India, so maybe the major component is a Negroid racial component.
There is no Negroid race in mainland of India. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yes, sir. So The racial, so from as far as I have read in anthropology.
What are the features of Mediterranean race?
So according to a few anthropologists, the Mediterranean race has a dusky brownish color, not necessarily.
Which race has founded the IVC culture, civilization?
So according to latest research by David Reich, he has sampled the DNA of a skeleton from Rakhigadi, and it is found that it is a Proto-Dravidian.
Rakhigadi is an important site of IVC.
Yes, sir. So it was a major settlement, sir, in Haryana.
Okay. Look, in Paleozoic era and primary epoch, we have 6 periods.
We have 6?
6 periods.
6 periods.
One is called Cambrian, second is called Ordovician, Silurian, then what? Devonian, Cambrian, and Permian. What are the actually zoological evolution took place in successive periods?
So I am not aware.
Anyone?
So pre-Cambrian period we
Not
had.
pre-Cambrian. This is
Cambrian.
what post-Cambrian period.
So
Paleozoic.
So can you please repeat the epochs?
Look, this is what 70 crore years to 24 crore years. This is a Joic period, and this is the first one, Paleozoic era, primary epoch, and we have 6 periods: Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian, Devonian, Cambrian, and Permian.
So I believe Devonian is the period in which mammals started to evolve.
When amoeba came out.
So I'm not certain. I'm not.
Look, in Mesozoic era, secondary epoch, we have 3 periods. A very dynamic period: Jurassic, Triassic, and look, Cretaceous. In which period there was evolution of dinosaurs. Evolution.
So it would be the one before the Jurassic period?
What was the period? Just have named?
So I guess it was the Triassic period, I'm not sure. Or the Cretaceous period.
Look, what is the basic difference of what anatomy in between Ramapithecus and Sivapithecus?
So as per the latest
Yes.
classification, they have now been declared the same, Ramapithecus and Sivapithecus.
Nothing is changed.
So these categories were created when there was less discovery of fossils.
What was the causes behind their nomenclature, Ramapithecus and Sivapithecus?
So these were found in the Indian subcontinent, and therefore they were named after. There is also one Brahmapithecus. So these were named after Indian gods only.
There are 3 types of evolution generally accepted. One is called mutation, second is called Lamarckism, and third is what? Look, Darwinism. So as climate change is going on, look, considering a particular area like a tribal area of Nilgiri, how all 3 is applicable in evolution of a new race. By mutation, first you consider, then you consider Lamarckism, and third, finally you consider Darwinism.
So mutations are spontaneous. So a development of a mutation that would be beneficial in the environment would be selected for. Therefore,
Why the probability of mutation in climate change is going on,
so it
taking
could,
more?
mutations have been known to be caused by environmental factors as well. So it could be that if
Is there any role of ultraviolet rays in mutation?
yes, sir, it is a mutagen.
So now Earth is getting more ultraviolet rays or less ultraviolet rays because of ozone layer duplication. What is the probability of occurrence of ultraviolet rays on Earth?
So as far as my knowledge goes, the ozone layer depletion is reversing, and therefore I wouldn't be able to say that I don't think we are getting more ultraviolet rays as of now.
Look, we have reptiles from West Bengal. Now I start to put what? Look, actually, don't put now eggs. So there is a drastic change in what evolution. Such leave it. How Lamarckism is applicable in evolution of a state in the case of climate change?
So Lamarckism is the
Use and disuse of
Yes, sir.
organs. Yes.
And organs that are used, according to Lamarckism, those are the ones that grow in size.
You are doing all these things on Nilgiri Hills. Toda, Irula, Kurumba, Pulian.
Yes, yes, sir. So I'm not able to think of something right now.
Okay, thank you.
Gitanjali, you are fond of Kathak dancing. Can you tell me the gharanas and the major exponent of Kathak right now?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Ma'am, there are mainly three: Lucknow Gharana, Jaipur Gharana, and Banaras Gharana. And I am from Lucknow Gharana, so I am more knowledgeable about the exponents in Lucknow Gharana. And the most famous is Pandit Birju Maharaj Ji, and there is Shobna Narayan Ji as well, and Achan Maharaj Ji is also there.
Shobna Narayan is from Banaras Gharana?
No, ma'am, she is also from Lucknow Gharana.
Okay. Why didn't you go for Jaipur Gharana? I think that would have related with your cultural background more.
Ma'am, before I started Kathak, I didn't know that there was an concept of Gharana, and it just so happened that the place
Can
where
you
I
tell me
started
the
learning-
basic difference between Lucknow and Jaipur?
Yes, ma'am.
And which is more flexible with respect to evolution?
Ma'am, Lucknow Gharana has an emphasis on bhav and elegance a lot, whereas Jaipur Gharana has more elegance, more emphasis on chakkars and footwork. And from what I have been told, it is Jaipur Gharana which has been formed later, and therefore I believe that would be more flexible.
Okay. Your father is from Rajasthan and your mother is from Karnataka. So you have been exposed to best of both the worlds, or say you have also experienced the worst of both the worlds. So can you tell me from socio-cultural point of view, societal point of view, what are the major differences that you saw and which one do you prefer over the other?
Ma'am, I haven't seen much of Karnataka. My mother is from there, but I have not visited much of Karnataka.
You don't go there on yearly visits?
No, ma'am, we haven't. Ma'am, we haven't gone there in a long time.
Okay, so whatever your mother has told you, or you must have.
Ma'am,
come
with regard
across.
to, ma'am, if I can just clarify, is this specific to just the culture or the states itself?
I mean the socio-cultural differences, the specific to the traditions and customs.
Ma'am, from what I have seen in my family, my mother's, I have visited the village once or twice, and I have seen that there is more openness about women empowerment. They are more pro-women empowerment as compared to in Jaipur, where I visit and I am often confronted with stereotypes about women empowerment. And that's why I would prefer Karnataka in that respect.
And why do you think that your father's side is more conservative as compared to your mother's side? What can be the reason?
Ma'am, Rajasthan and many North Indian states, they have a very strong patriarchal culture, and that could be one of the reasons why. Also,
patriarchy is there in South India also.
Ma'am, I have not seen it to the extent, and I'm not talking about entire South India, only what I have seen. And in Rajasthan, I have also seen that the education is not that much, especially with regard to women. They are not educated to the extent that they are in Karnataka, and that could also be one of the.
Can you tell me the reason behind one of the cultural aspect that in Rajasthan there is Parda Pratha? In fact, right now in Jaipur there is a campaign going on, Ghungat Hatao campaign. Whereas in South India, women do not even cover their head. So what can be the reason behind this?
Ma'am, in my opinion, it would be something to do with the historical factors.
And what is it?
Because there has been an influence of Islam in the north, especially with the relations of the Mughal Empire with the Rajput kingdoms. And the Parda system was introduced by Islam, and I believe that might be one of the reasons why it was adopted in Rajasthan and not in South.
Okay, my last question to you. What is this Mahadayi dispute about, and why the dispute is not being able to be resolved?
Ma'am, I am not knowledgeable much about it, but I believe Mahadayi is a river dispute that is between Karnataka and Goa, I believe, or Maharashtra.
Both of these.
Yes, ma'am. and I'm not aware why it isn't being solved.
Okay, thank you.
Gitanjali, recently the Indian Navy launched a Operation Vanilla. So which country was it aimed at and why was it launched?
So I'm not aware of
You're
the
not aware.
operation.
Okay. It is said that India has to play the role of a net security provider in the Indian Ocean region. So what do we mean by net security provider?
So my understanding of net security provider is traditionally there's been lack of an architecture in the Indian Ocean where in terms of a security organization which has been able to ensure the stability of the region. In recent times, we've seen more assertiveness of China in the Indian Ocean, which would be one of the reasons why India is aiming to be net security provider.
Indian Navy also undertakes sometimes operations which are referred to as HADR operations. What is HADR?
So it is humanitarian and disaster relief operations.
Humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. Right. Okay. Why is President Trump facing impeachment?
So it was alleged that President Trump tried to pressurize Ukraine to investigate into one of his political rivals, and that is why he faced impeachment.
Is that the only reason, or like there is another?
Yes, so the second reason is that it was alleged that he obstructed Congress, and that is the second.
Right. Do you think he'll be impeached finally?
So I believe yesterday itself there was a vote where he was acquitted.
Okay. There was an event in US called Howdy Modi. Where was it held?
So I can only guess. I don't know.
Okay.
So I think it was Texas.
Right. And in that event, the Indian Prime Minister actually endorsed Donald Trump for a second term. Now, how right is it for the Indian Prime Minister to meddle in the electoral affairs of another country?
So, if I can just clarify, so was it his personal opinion or was it a government?
That is not clear to us. Like he was there as Indian Prime Minister.
Yes, sir. So, maybe in interest of continuity of good relations, it would be in the interest
But what
of
if a Democrat wins the election?
In that case, we'll work with the democratic government as well, sir.
So you see nothing wrong in what he has done?
So my understanding of it is from what you have told me, sir. I am not aware of this issue as such, but it seems like a personal opinion of his, and that would be all right.
Okay, in an official capacity, personal opinion expressed in an official capacity.
So I believe he was speaking on the stage.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, sir, I think it's all right.
Okay, what can an anthropologist study in a shopping mall?
So we can, as an anthropologist can study capitalism and consumerism and consumer behavior as well.
Okay, what do you understand by radiometric dating and where is it used?
So radiometric dating is used to largely to date fossils, but also other artifacts that were found in prehistoric sites from archaeological sites, and it refers to the use of the principle of fission to be able to date or give a chronological time to the artifact.
Okay. Do you think that Indian democracy will benefit if only wise people vote and only elected people contest elections? This is a hypothetical question, so I expect a honest answer and not a...
So, can you repeat the question, sir?
Do you think that Indian democracy will benefit if only wise people vote in the elections and only educated people contest elections? It's a hypothetical question, so I don't expect a politically correct answer.
So, I'm not of the opinion that India would benefit if only wise and educated people were allowed to vote, because elections are not just about complicated issues which need an education to understand. Elections are also about local issues where a person who has lived through that experience would be more knowledgeable than any educated person. So that would count more.
So there should be no discrimination among the voters. But what about the candidates who are contesting elections?
So there again, I don't support that only educated personnel should be allowed to contest elections, because we've had ministers who
Then
have
why
done
we
well.
are having this education like graduation as minimum eligibility for civil services? Here also we should allow everybody.
So
Especially we should prefer candidates like who are having a rural background and who are more in tune with the realities.
yes, sir. So the people from rural background are in any case not barred in the civil service. It is just an education qualification which anybody from a rural or an urban area is allowed to apply. And I feel that the civil services or the administrative services is more technical, and therefore it would need certain amount of experience with regard to education, whereas policy making is not as technical a job, and it would be based more on experience rather than knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Gitanjali, you're from Hindu college. How do you relate to your institution? I'm asking especially because in a democratic country, in a democratic secular country, I do understand the history. But still, why should we have the majority religion being a name of an institution which is state funded, which is secular, and there's nothing Hindu about it?
Yes, sir. So the college was named such when
I understand the history
it was
part.
founded. Yes,
I
sir.
understand the history part. Why do we continue with such practice?
So in my opinion, it should not be continued. I am not in support of the college still being named Hindu College, because as you pointed out, there is nothing Hindu about it in general. It is not as though minorities are not allowed or it is a majority thing. So I am of the opinion that the name may be changed. So
There's been this traditional rivalry between Hindu and the ditch across the road stuff. Do you believe that the snobbery of Stephens and the kind of still on ground Hindu thing, it is still applicable, or unfortunately Stephens has remained Stephens and Hindu has become Stephens?
So the rivalry is cultivated in a sense, because a few years ago when I completed graduation, I remember every year when the freshers would happen, my seniors would sit them down and tell them there are 5 rules. And one of the rules will be that the Stephens College cannot be referred to by its name. So in a sense, that competition and rivalry is cultivated. And to an extent, it is all right, because it promotes healthy competition, and people would want to do better against another college. However, I am not supportive of this attitude where one targets the other and then tries to feel better about one's own institution.
Gitanjali, you want to become an IAS officer, absolutely okay. But the way, I mean, consider a situation to actually become an IAS officer. You're still in the training academy, and because of you being that so cute, small looking girl, and you're still very young, you find that your colleagues in the academy, they're being extra nice to you. They're not harassing you, they're not saying bad words, but they're kid gloving you, right? And they're being extra nice whenever the tough things come. They come forward and try and share it. They're being extra nice, but in a sense they're being patronizing you. And you obviously is not feeling good about it. You want to be treated at par. How will you communicate it to your colleagues who are not doing anything wrong, are not doing anything bad, but you know deep inside it's bad?
So I believe direct communication would have to be the first step. If it is something that is occurring, I would...
But what will you say? Please don't be nice to me. You cannot say somebody, don't be nice to me.
No, sir, I'd say exactly as you have put it, sir, that you're being unnecessarily nice to me, and in interest of my personal growth, please try to introspect whether this is the case or not. Or maybe it could be that it is just my perception, and maybe they're actually just being nice. And I think the first step would be a direct communication. If that does not solve the issue, I believe a little bit of competition would help. And if I'm able to perform, and if they see me as a competitor, then that would help that behavior as well.
Fine, Gitanjali. It was nice talking to you. You can leave now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, Gitanjali. How was it, and what are the areas you believe that you still need to work on?
So I feel the factual information what sir asked me, I should have known all of that. And I have studied it. So a lot of factual information I need to gather, sir. Also a little bit on international relations I need to work on.
Okay. See, Gitanjali, in any case, it's going to be interesting. You're going to be interesting candidate for the board members, and that's what I understand out of the DEF and your personality, that board members are likely to be very eager to interact with you. And while you are a good candidate, if we consider your knowledge and the way you communicate, it's good. Your sitting posture is good, your voice level bandage is good, your vocabulary is good, flow is nice, and eye contact bandage is good. So all whatever we call communication parameters, they are in place. But then it takes you only to a certain point and not beyond that. And the problem is that, as I said, that your DEF actually kind of make board members interested in you. And they start with definitely with higher expectation. And it's, you do not, I mean, during the course of interview, we realize that you're not doing enough justice to it. You have made certain escape routes within your thing, and you want to get away with it. While it is okay to get away, I mean, you do, for example, you duck Karnataka, you duck the cultural compatibility, cultural conflict issues or cultural comparison issues and all. Unfortunately, your DEF is not allowing you to do so. You may get away with it, but rather than taking it as an obstacle, I'll advise you to take it as an opportunity. So rather than finding ways not to answer it, it will be always good to prepare a bit and then answer it well and use the opportunity, right? And you're doing it more than once, on several occasions. And all these occasions are the occasions where it's little information and an analysis along with a personal touch will make your interview a wonderful experience for you and for the board members. And that will always be good for you. You're getting my point? I'm not saying that you're giving a bad interview. You're giving a really good interview. That will take you to the average. But if it is 170, 160 is not what you're looking for, if you're looking for another 40 and another 35, then I think these opportunities need to be capitalized. Right now, we are not doing it. You're not doing it enough. I mean, you're doing it, but you're not doing it enough, right? I'm not commenting right now on the way you look right now, because I presume that this is not the way this is not what you'll be wearing. You should be wearing very formal. And I'm sure you're wearing sari or something. वो उसको आप देख लीजिएगा. उस पर अभी मैं comment नहीं कर रहा हूँ. Otherwise, things are okay. To me, please treat your DAF as some kind of a Bible. Anything written on it, okay, which you choose to write or you wrote because of the fact it being factually correct, then work on every word of it. Right now, your DAF is not adequately prepared. Everything else is in place. I'm sure your interview is going to be very, very interesting. This interesting interview, whether it results in good marks or not, is all up to you. Okay? All the best.
So I have a doubt with regard to the cultural aspect that ma'am asked me. So my answer was such because I honestly do not have any first-hand experience. So what would you suggest that I
suggest you to study it a bit.
Okay.
This is such a simple thing. Study it a bit, and then you need not tell lies. You can say I'm not very frequent to that place, but obviously my mother is from that place, and I do have certain interest in it, and this is what I know.
Okay.
Right? That's the way of doing it.
All right. Thank you, sister.